Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming here to the Church of St. Albert the Great. My name is Tom Fidium. I'm the Director of Music and Liturgy here, and I'd like to introduce our pastor, Father Jude McPeak.
Hello, everyone. Merry Christmas. Early Merry Christmas. It's finally looking like Christmas outside, so that's a nice treat. But it's such a pleasure to have you all with us here this afternoon, and especially to join together, two of our very gifted cantors here at St. Albert the Great, Mark and Karen. And this, of course, is made possible from a donation from Joan Klopp from her son, who wanted to, his mother was a member of our choir and he wanted to commemorate her. And so what better way than to hold a concert and to celebrate music here in St. Albert the Great. And I am looking forward to the set, although, I was hoping they could add a hymn of, Mr. Grinch from How the Grinch Stole Christmas, one of my favorite Christmas movies, but I think that's not going to be on the agenda today. But of course, it's a great pleasure to have you all with us, and thank you for coming. You're welcome to come back anytime. All are welcome here at St. Albert the Great. And so I hope you enjoy the music and enjoy the fellowship. Thank you.
As we go through this afternoon, I'll talk about things, and maybe things you know, maybe things you don't know, and give you a little insight about what's going on. The first thing we're going to do is the piece on your program. It's called The Sleep of the Child Jesus. And it's for a soprano, and it's an incredibly difficult piece. And it is basically an aria, and Karen Wolverton is going to join us right now to sing that. It's actually called a berceuse, and in French the word for cradle is berceau. So this is a berceuse, or a cradle song, or lullaby. Karen. Next, we're going to hear from our baritone, Mr. Mark Billy. And the interesting thing about this is it's from the opera Faust. But of all the roles that he will be singing today, this is the only good guy. The baritone is the bad guy in all the other arias that you will hear. And what's happening here is he's going off to war, but he wants to know that he's going to be protected because he has a silver medal that his sister gave him. But he worries about his sister and who's going to protect her. So from the opera Faust, we have Mr. Mark Billy. You know, opera is that wonderful, improbable place. I mean, just to sing is a miracle, I think, that we all have. When I was a teacher, students would always ask, what is the most difficult instrument to play? Well, I would never tell them the truth because I always wanted them to sing in the chorus. But in truth, it is the human voice. It truly is a miracle that human beings can do that, and especially to sing like that. And it takes a very long time, I think. When I was very young and in college, I was an accompanist for a master class. The singer's name was Elizabeth Schwarzkopf, and she was a very famous soprano, and she did everything right, and she was famous for her role as the Marschallin in The Rosenkavalier. And you could go on YouTube, and she's just amazing. But when she retired, she gave college students master classes, and I accompanied them. Of course, I didn't know who she was, and I would just accompany. It was brutal to sit through. She would say to some of these singers, well, what to say to that? I don't even know. Is it music? And I thought it was pretty good. But she would always say, too, that the face always has to have resonance. You must think it's an elephant's trunk and you must project. It was just amazing because every little part of the performance is studied. And now, with that, we're going to go to the final scene from the opera Thais. Talk about faraway places. We're talking about the fallen woman Thais. She's a pagan. She worships Venus, and everyone in the place loves her and worships her for that. But a holy man comes and convinces her that that is the wrong way. And she decides that she is going to be redeemed, and he's taking her to a convent where she is going to do penance. It's a trip through the desert, and he only relents and gives her time to take a rest when her feet are bleeding. But now we're at the convent where she has done penance for 3 months. Her piety is unmatched, and in fact, the other nuns have already called her a saint. But we find out that the man that saved her realizes that he truly was in love with her. And he comes to the convent, and she is already on her way in ecstasy, and she dies in his arms. So, the final scene from Thais.
cette soif est apaisée quand il sera apaisement.
C'est que te souviens-t-il de tes chants de
j'ai parlé, je t'ai menti. Je t'ai menti. Non, le ciel, rien n'existe, rien n'est vrai que les filles et que l'amour des êtres. Je t'aime. Tout qui m'appartient. Ma Thaïs, je je vivrai. Thaïs, ma Thaïs. Thaïs, il m'appartient. Thaïs, Thaïs. Thaïs, viens, viens. Morte, pitié.
We'll give them a second to catch their breath. Wow, amazing. The next thing, next piece is going to be from the Magic Flute by Mozart. And it's a duet, and it's a lovely duet, but it's the love of a man and a woman. You know, that there's nothing better in the world. And the Magic Flute was written at the end of Mozart's life. I mean, and he needed money, so he was actually doing it for a friend of his that had like a theater company. It wasn't in the opera house, it wasn't, but it became very popular. And many pieces from the Magic Flute are very familiar. For example, the Queen of the Night aria up out there, high Fs and for sopranos. But this is a lovely duet for two people, and it's about the beauty of the love between a man and a woman.
vielen ist dann, der Weiber ist erfliegt. Wir wollen uns der Liebe freuen. Wir leben durch die Liebe allein. Wir leben durch die Liebe allein.
Die versüßet jede Plage, ihr opfert jede Kreatur.
Sie würzet unsere Lebenstage, sie wirkt im Kreise der Natur. Ihr Ortsweg seid deutlich an, nicht echtes sei als Weib und Mann, nicht echtes sei als Weib und Mann. Mann und Weib und Weib und Mann. Mann und Weib und Weib und Mann. Reisen die Gottheit an. Mann und Weib und Weib und Mann. Reisen die Gottheit an. Die Gottheit an. Die Gottheit an.
We're going to take a little 5-minute break to give them a chance to gulp some water or to rest their voice for a second before we move into the Puccini pieces, which are truly amazing. So we'll be back in 5. is why. Not much of a song, is it? Not much of a musical piece? Well, that was written by Puccini, the composer, the famous opera composer, and he started life as a church musician. In fact, an organist. He came from a long line of organists in Lucca, Italy. And I can't imagine at the turn of the century, early 1900s, in a little church in Lucca, that would be church music. So, in fact, he tried to downplay it as much as possible. One of his students kept the manuscripts, and only a few years ago were they discovered. So, I thought that's an interesting tidbit as we move into the next part of the program. I think the greatest opera composer ever is Puccini. And the piece right now is called Un bel dì. And I bet many of you have heard it. Yes? You know? Well, it's the story of a young Japanese woman who fell in love with an American by the name of Benjamin Franklin Pinkerton. And the one true love of her life, and he goes back to the United States. And after he's gone, she bears a child, and they are basically living in poverty. She dreams of the day which she's going to see his ship come into the harbor. And her companion is there with her and is a little doubtful, but throughout it, you're going to see a different range of emotions. In fact, what's difficult about it is it's all in this one piece, many different moods. You have the one where she's almost remembering what it was. Then the defiant, it's going to happen. It starts very softly, and as the composer says, almost from a distance. And it starts on a high G, which that's hard to do. So if you just listen for that and listen to Karen's interpretation, which is absolutely stunning. Karen?
Piange perché
That is one of my favorites of all time. I mean, wow. The next is the end of the first act of Tosca. And it is probably Puccini's masterpiece. And I'm going to join them on the organ because this is set in a church. The inspector Scarpia has chased an escaped prisoner to the church. And in the grand opera tradition, the singing of the Te Deum, if you see a fully staged production of this, everybody gets to work. All the supers, the people that don't sing, they just carry it, whatever, they get to, because the stage is full. The chorus is magnificent when it comes in, full orchestra. This is what big opera is all about. But Scarpia has decided that he sets his eyes on the actress Tosca. And he doesn't care what it takes, but he is going to have her. And at the end of the piece, he even says, "Tosca, you have made me forget God." Pretty strong words. So here is the end of the first act from Tosca.
Tre sbirri, una carrozza, presto, seguila dovunque vada, provvisto, provvedi. Palazzo Farnese, Tosca, nel tuo cuore s'annida Scarpia. Tosca, e Scarpia che scioglie a volo il falco della tua gelosia. Quanta promessa nel tuo pronto sospetto, nel tuo cor s'annida Scarpia.
The next piece is from The Bat, Die Fledermaus. And it is sung by a woman that's in disguise, as she's pretending to be from a different country, and that country is Hungary. And Mark is going to join Karen on the clarinet. Hard to believe that voice was not Mark's first instrument. The clarinet was. So he is going to show his multifaceted musicality with the clarinet and the tambourine. I just have one question. How do you do that? I mean, what made me fall in love with opera is the soprano voice. And I remember being, I don't know, 12 or 13 and watching the Johnny Carson show. And there was a soprano on there named Beverly Sills. And she sort of bridged the gap into grand opera, and she was sort of popular. I mean, she was the thing. And I would listen to her records and like that, the coloratura. How do you do that? And the soprano is my favorite voice. So that's how I got interested in it. In fact, there were times when I was in college when we would take the bus from Scranton, Pennsylvania, where I was from, 2 hours on the Trailways bus, get to New York City to the Metropolitan Opera with the score in hand, because we were going to the fifth ring of the Met, where there's no view of the stage. There are desks there for students with lights, so you could follow the score and pay attention to what's going on. But sometimes it was really, what are they doing down there? You know, especially like in Aida, the Triumphal March, because we went in the back of the Metropolitan Opera House, and you could see all the trailers for all the animals, the live animals that were going to be in this production. And we weren't going to get to see it, but we were so fortunate. It was $2, $8 for the bus, and then $2 to sit up there with no view. But live music, there's no substitute. And the audience that we are today, one of my professors used to always say that after all the rehearsal, we are ready for l'enfant de paradis, the children of paradise. So I think you could imagine that I feel like a child of paradise here in this room this afternoon, that they're doing such a wonderful, wonderful job. And I lost my train of thought. Where are we next? Oh, c'est moi. And this is from the very famous musical Camelot, which is the Arthur legend. And it was 1960 in New York, and the show was over 4 hours long. You know, and they were having trouble, and it had 3 great stars, Richard Burton, Julie Andrews, and a young Robert Goulet to make up the love triangle. It didn't really catch on until Sunday night. And most of us, I think, probably are old enough to remember what Sunday night was, and that was the Ed Sullivan Show. And Camelot appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show and got an audience and became a hit eventually. But this song is Lancelot's entrance, and it really is unmitigated ego. One of my favorite lyrics is, "If I'd been made the partner of Eve, we'd be in Eden still." Wow. So here is Mark to sing Lancelot's opening piece, C'est moi.
Camelot, Camelot, in far off France I heard your call. Camelot, Camelot, and here am I to give my all. I know in my soul what you expect of me, and know that in more I shall be. A knight of the Table Round should be invincible, succeed where less fantastic men would fail. Climb a wall no one else can climb, cleave a dragon in record time, swim a moat in a coat of heavy iron mail. No matter the pain, he ought to be unwincible. Impossible deed should be his daily fare. But where in the world is there in the world a man so extraordinary? C'est moi, I'm forced to admit, 'tis I humbly reply, that mortal who these marvels can do, c'est moi, 'tis I. I've never lost in a battle or game, I'm simply the best by far. When swords are crossed, 'tis always the same, one blow and au revoir. c'est moi, so admirably fit, a French Prometheus unbound. And here I stand with power untold, exceptionally brave, amazingly bold, to serve at the table round, c'est moi.
Well, I don't think Robert Goulet had anything on Mark with that song. I prefer. The next piece of music you've probably never heard, and it is a song that is very, very touching. It comes from a musical that played for 4 performances on Broadway. August of 1986, it came with much acclaim because the famous opera soprano from the Metropolitan Opera, Teresa Stratas, was going to make her debut. And everyone was excited about it. Its credentials were impeccable. The composer is Strauss, which is, Annie and Bye Bye Birdie, lots of things. The lyricist is Stephen Schwartz, Wicked, Pippin. So it had pretty good credentials and a big star. So they were in trouble. I had the fortunate experience of being around then, and I was obsessed with it. So of the 4 performances that it did play, I saw 2 of them. And I absolutely loved this song. And the story is that it's 1910. We're in New York City. Everyone here probably knows the story of Fiddler on the Roof, the Russian pogroms of 1905. And Anatevka, their town, is in the Ukraine. So it sort of bears significance as right now. So where did everyone from Anatevka, or many of those places that were forced out of the Ukraine, go? Many of them were immigrants here in New York City. So this picks up the story 5 years later. The character's name is Rebecca Hershkowitz, and she comes here because her husband has already come, and he said, "I'll meet you at the dock after Ellis Island." Well, we all know what happened. He wasn't there. And she spends most of the first act looking for him, trying to make a living. And the song here that she is singing, she has very different dreams for America than many of the immigrants. All she wanted was a home. And I'm going to accompany Karen on this, not because Bobby can't. It's just because I love the song so much. And I asked Karen to sing it, and maybe I'm introducing you to something that you've not heard before. So, Children of the Wind.
Hiding in the wheat fields from the Cossacks and the screams. Flames are on the hillside, blood is in the streams. All the world is burning, that's the way that it seems. Every night it fills my dreams. I see us running through the wheat fields, and there's 40 miles to go. Sneaking past the border in the silent snow, sleeping under haystacks, eating roots where they grow, begging on the pier at Danzig. Well, we made it here from Danzig. What's another mile or so? We're children of the wind, blown across the earth, pieces of the
Not every song comes from a hit show. I just think that's an amazing song, and I hope you enjoyed that. The last piece here is from La Traviata. And of course, that's probably a very famous opera to many of you. And Violetta, of course, is the woman of ill repute. And a middle-class man falls in love with her, and she falls in love with him. And she sells her possessions to go live with him in the country. So, pretty good. However, the father of the young man that she's now has her true love decides, or because she has a scandalous past and brings shame on the family, he asks Violetta to renounce him, which she does. And in this piece, you're going to see that she makes the ultimate sacrifice, and watch how the vocal lines keep going up. She has decided and made her choice, an impossible choice, really. And listen to Karen and Mark. Mark is playing the role of Violetta's lover's father.
generosa, e per voi che far possio, o generosa. No, generosa vivere, e lieta voi l'avrete, mercé di queste lagrime dal cielo, un giorno avrete.
Conosco sacrificio mio dolce d'amore, che sarò soffio, sospiro del mio cor.
Premiato e sacrificio sarà nel vostro onore, d'un'opera così nobile sarete fiera allor. Sì, sì, sì. Sarà nel vostro cuore,
big house. And everybody in town was waiting for her to pass for this piano. It was well known. And if you ever miss Schmidt's music or whatever, you have that piano, like we do. And we were fortunate to be able to purchase it. And believe me, it's like the best of the best. We've had many pianists come here and experience this piano. And it's truly amazing, the best. So when they came to her house after she passed, and they tipped it to its side, underneath they found gold bullion that she had stored. And now told him, well, we didn't get it, but that's where she was finding her gold bullion. Just a little interesting tidbit. And I think we should bring our soloist back for one more piece. Just
there's a place for us, somewhere a place for us, peace and quiet and open air, wait for us somewhere.
There's a time for us, someday a time for us, time together with time to spare, time to learn, time to care. Someday,
Somewhere we'll find a new way of living. We'll find a way of forgiving. Somewhere.
There's a place for us, a time and place for us.
Hold my hand and we're halfway there.
Hold my hand and I'll take you there.
Somehow, someday, somewhere.
we don't call these companies we're collaborators. I just met the young man who first time yesterday, and he truly is a marvel.